Good morning, everyone. My name's Don Smith, and I'm with SSI Consulting. I'm here today with Larry Rosborough, the president of SSI Consulting. So good morning, Larry.
Good morning, Don.
So Larry, this morning, we're going to be talking about interim leadership.
Well, Don, the issue that we have today for a lot of companies is in today's labor market, when somebody leaves, it's extremely hard to find a replacement for those person, and it can take a lot of time. What can happen is if that person that leaves is in a leadership position, it can leave a big hole in the organization for a period of time that may put stress on other people. So we need to help people find a solution for that interim leadership to bridge that gap.
So what can organizations or companies do?
So in thinking about this, one of the things that I've always thought about is that a company can look at bringing in somebody on a temporary basis or on an interim basis to help bridge that gap. What happens frequently is companies just try to make do, and the rest of the leadership team, whatever part of the leadership team that is, try and take over and just bridge the gap and make things happen. Or in some cases, they might promote somebody a little bit too quickly into that position, and then they can have problems. So they need to consider bringing in somebody on a temporary basis. This doesn't have to be long-term, but to help them bridge that gap.
So does this mean that a company or organization has to bring somebody or hire somebody on a full-time basis?
It really doesn't mean that they need somebody on a full-time basis, 5 days a week for months and months. The important thing is that they get somebody with some leadership skills. Doesn't have to be even in that same field where the person is leaving, but somebody that knows how to lead a team that can come in and then determine exactly how much time they need to be there, say in terms of days per week. One of the things that happens is if it's the intact team that's just trying to bridge the gap, they're still caught up in the bureaucracy of any organization that has it. But if you bring an interim leader in, they may be able to do things on a quicker basis or without being there 5 days a week in the office. So that can lower the cost of bringing in that interim leader.
Okay, so how is that possible then?
So the way it can work is that when somebody leaves unexpectedly, or even if they do announce that they're leaving suddenly, the team that's now left have to determine how they're going to bridge that gap. How are they going to get from the person leaving till they have a new qualified person in place? They're going through a recruitment process or maybe a promotion process. But what they've got to consider is, are they going to miss something in that interim period? And is there a risk that something happens in the business? They miss a deadline, or things just aren't happening right within the team. So by bringing in an interim leader, even if it's somebody that's only there a few days a week, they can organize what needs to be done and not get involved in some of the other things that typically happen within companies, but tie up a whole lot of time. The interim leader really needs to bridge that gap in the example I'm giving to make sure that everything happens, they've got a good continuity, and they're flowing from one thing to the next.
Okay, so what else can they do?
So the other thing that happens within companies, so one is the person leaves and companies going to try and recruit, and they're looking for somebody new. The second part is when the company or organization tries to move somebody into the position. Maybe they've had a succession plan, but the person isn't quite ready yet. So then what happens is that new person comes in, that person that they're promoting, and if they're not ready, they may struggle, and it puts then stress again on the rest of the leadership team, and it may put a lot of stress on the team that they're trying to lead. So what we can suggest to folks is that by bringing an interim leader, you still may want to promote that person, but this interim leader with good leadership skills can help that person bridge the gap between what they are trying to do and as they're learning the new role, taking on new responsibilities, the interim person can be there to help mentor them and coach them through that part of the process. Now, if the company has a really good succession plan, they may have gotten this right, but normally it doesn't happen that way. Normally what happens is somebody gets in there too soon, and then the worst thing that can happen is that new person gets frustrated, their team gets frustrated, and the person leaves or is unsuccessful in the job. And that's just a total waste of the organization's time, because they may have been trying to groom this person for that position. And then it turns out, because of a bad transition, things turn out bad for them and turns out bad for the company.
How can a company or organization go about finding an interim leader?
So there's a number of organizations out there now today, and companies like ours, that offer that as a service. But the biggest issue is really not finding somebody. I think a very quick search will find folks with the skills. The bigger thing is making the decision that the company or organization is going to do that. They have to really look hard at themselves and say, hey, this is the right thing to do. We don't want to put extra stress on the rest of the members of our leadership team or the team of where a person has exited. And we're going to bring in somebody from an interim point of view. It may only be for a few weeks, it may be for a few months, but that's the bigger question that they have to do. Once they make that decision, they'll find somebody reasonably quickly, I'm sure.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is that when somebody leaves suddenly, the first reaction within an organization usually is, uh-oh, somebody's gone, how are we going to fill that hole? And they do that scramble around, and they may determine, sometimes happens, that we're just going to have our existing team take over until we do the recruitment. What companies don't do is think about all of the costs that are associated with not having somebody in that leadership position. Even for a temporary period of time, it may be, as I said before, weeks or months. What can happen in the short term? Are there deadlines? Are there things that get missed because we don't have a person in the leadership team and the team below them aren't quite ready to take on that? How about the extra stress that goes in place? You know, when somebody leaves suddenly and the rest of the team members have to step in there and fill the gap, that can put a lot of stress on people that are usually already pretty busy. And what about the stress on the team that the leader has left? Those people may be now trying to pick up pieces and trying to do more, or they may find themselves somewhat rudderless and scrambling around trying to figure out what to do. So we have to think about those things from a business perspective as well as the personnel perspective, to make sure that we're considering all those costs. In the end of the day, in my opinion, bringing in an interim leader for a few weeks or a few months is a much cheaper way of organizing the business, and probably will come out with a good result.
All right. Well, thanks, Larry. And so to all our viewers out there, if you have any questions or comments, you can enter them into the comment section below. So with that, thank you for your time and have a great day.